It's no wonder museum directors sleep badly, and worry a lot. Which has nothing to do with the present case. It wasn't my job or my tendency to interfere in other people's business that led me astray this time. It was one man, and I should have known better. It rains a lot in southern Germany. That's why the Bavarian countryside is so lush and green. In bright sunshine, Munich is one of the world's gayest and most charming cities. Under dull gray skies, it is as dismal as any other town. This spring had been even wetter than usual. They say that every spring. As I stood waiting for the bus one evening in late May, I felt that I'd seen enough water to last me for a long while. My umbrella had a hole in it, and rain was trickling down the back of my neck. I had stepped in a puddle crossing Tegernsee Allee, and my expensive new Italian sandals were soggy wrecks. A sea of bobbing, shiny, wet umbrellas hemmed me in. Since most Munichers, male and female, are shorter than I am, the streaming hemispheres were almost all on my eye level, and every now and then a spoke raked painfully across the bridge of my nose. Italy, I thought. Capri, with a blue, blue sea splashing onto white sand. Rome, baked umber and sienna by a bright sun. My vacation wasn't due until July. I decided to move it up. Naturally, the package arrived that evening. Some people have a diabolical sense of timing. Even the weather cooperates with them. The rest of the mail was the usual dull collection, plus the weekly letter from my mother, which I wasn't exactly aching to read. It would contain the usual repetitive news about her bridge club and her recipes, plus the usual veiled hints about how I ought to be settling down. My birthday was rapidly approaching. Never mind which one. As far as Mom is concerned, every birthday after the 21st is a step down the road to hopeless spinsterdom. I kept sending her carefully expurgated descriptions of my social life, but I couldn't expect her to understand why marriage was the last thing I wanted. She and Dad have been like Siamese twins for over 40 years. Before I could read the mail or divest myself of my wet clothes, I had to deal with Caesar. He is a souvenir of a former misadventure of mine, in Rome, and there were times when I wished I had brought back a rosary blessed by the Pope, or a paperweight shaped like the Colosseum, instead of an oversized, overly affectionate dog. Caesar is a Doberman. At least, he looks like a Doberman. Like Schmidt's, his personality doesn't match his appearance. He is slobberingly naive and simple-minded. He likes everybody, including burglars, and he dotes on me. He's cost me a small fortune, not only in food, but in extras, such as housing. Even if I had the heart to confine a horse-sized dog to a small apartment, there wasn't a landlord in the city insane enough to rent to me. So I had a house in the suburbs. The bus ride took almost an hour twice a day. I let Caesar out and let him in, and fed him, and let him out, and dried him off. Then I settled down with the mail and a well-deserved glass of wine. I opened the package first, noting with only mild interest that I was not the first to open it. German customs, I assumed. The stamps were Swedish. The address was in neat block printing, and the return address, required on international parcels, was that of a hotel in Oslo. Swedish stamps, Oslo address, anonymous printing. That should have warned me. If there were anything in this business of premonitions, there isn't. I was still only mildly curious when I opened the box. But when I saw the contents, one perfectly shaped crimson rose, my blood pressure soared. It had been over a year since I'd seen John. Almost 3 years since the red rose had been mentioned. But I had good cause to remember it. One red rose once a year. He hadn't said it, I had, at Leonardo da Vinci Airport, as I was leaving for Munich, and John was leaving for parts unknown, with, as he quaintly put it, the police of 3 countries after him. John was another souvenir of that Roman adventure, and he'd turned out to be even more inconvenient than Caesar. I'd seen him once in the intervening time. We'd spent 3 days together in Paris. On the third night, he had departed out of the window of the hotel room while I slept, leaving behind a suitcase full of dirty clothes, an unpaid hotel bill, and a tender, charming note of farewell. My fury was not mitigated when I learned from a sympathetic but equally infuriated inspector of the Sûreté of the reason for his precipitate departure. They'd waited until morning to close in on him, feeling sure, said the inspector with a gallant Gallic bow, that he would be settled for the night. The police wouldn't tell me what it was he'd stolen. I didn't really want to know. John is a thief. He specializes in the objects I am paid to guard and protect. Gems, antiques, art objects. He isn't a very successful thief. He's smart enough, and God knows he's tricky. But he's also a dedicated coward. When he hears the heavy footsteps of cops or competitors thundering toward him, he drops everything and runs. That may not seem like an attractive quality, but it's actually one of John's more appealing traits. If everybody were as reluctant to inflict or endure pain, there wouldn't be any wars or muggings of helpless little old ladies. He has the most atrophied conscience of anyone I know. He also has, but perhaps I'd better not be too explicit, since I want this book to appeal to a family audience. When he's engaged in what he does so well, one may be momentarily bemused into forgetting his true nature. But one would have to be a damned fool to let him con one at any other time. I picked up the rose and tried to tear the petals off. As I should have realized, it was one of those silk imitations, quite sturdily constructed. I was reaching for the scissors when I saw something else in the box. It was a blue imitation leather travel folder containing a plane ticket and a hotel reservation slip. The hotel was in Stockholm. The ticket was to Stockholm. I had a reservation on a plane leaving in 10 days' time. What I had was a bucket of squirming worms. What was he up to this time? I said it aloud. What are you up to this time, you dirty dog? Caesar, sprawled across my feet, took this for a deliberate, undeserved insult. He barked indignantly. It may have been an omen. Who knows? I had both hands on the flimsy paper layers of the ticket, ready to rend it apart. By the time I had reassured Caesar and apologized, I'd had a chance to reconsider. A rose is a rose is a rose, and a ticket is a ticket. And a ticket is a hell of a lot more useful than a rose. My mental excursion into poetry reminded me of another verse, that touching little lyric of Dorothy Parker's, in which she mourns, "Why is it no one ever sent me yet one perfect limousine, do you suppose? Ah, no, it's always just my luck to get one perfect rose." I felt sure John was also familiar with that gem of American literature. A plane ticket doesn't measure up to a limousine, but Dorothy would have preferred it to a rose. Rain sloshed at the window. I sneezed. Sweden, the land of my ancestors. Some of them, anyway. Roots. Stockholm, the Venice of the North, its canals gleaming under a warm spring sun. No, there was too much water in that image. The stately palaces and quaint old streets of Stockholm shining in the warm spring sun. As I contemplated the mental picture, the sun shone brighter and brighter. I would use that ticket, and when John showed up, I would spit right in his baby blue eyes. The Paris hotel bill had set me back almost $200. I looked into the bottom of the box, hoping for something else that had actual cash value. A check, though it would probably bounce, or some trinket stolen from a museum, such as a diamond necklace, though it would undoubtedly be a fake. There was something else in the box, a single sheet of paper. Printed on it, in the same hand as the address on the package, were 2 words, and these were they: Vilandia Fabrica. I sat staring.